Okay, guys, welcome to the Community Engineering Hangouts. We have two interesting topics today. The first one dedicated to intelligent merchandising and will be covered by Misha. And the second one is extended API coverage for Magento 2.5, covered by Alex. So let's don't waste our time. Misha, go ahead.
Hey everyone, my name is Misha Kotov. I'm a product manager at Adobe. Today I'll be talking about our one prime example of intelligent merchandising, which is our product recommendations feature, and I'll cover some of the things that we've been working on and the improvements that we've been rolling out. And at the end, want to focus a little bit on future-looking strategy, and even maybe get some feedback from those that are on the call about which directions maybe they would like us to move to next. So the first thing that I wanted to cover is a quick summary of like super high level design of our feature, because it's a little bit different from how features have been built historically in Magento. So hopefully you guys can see my screen with the architectural overview. This is just straight on our dev docs page about recommendations. So two things that I want to cover really fast is that there's a Magento instance here on the left, and then there's SaaS services over here on the right, which this feature is the first feature to be deployed as a SaaS service. So it works a little bit differently, but the two main things that I want to cover are recommendations. Product recommendations are, they need two sources of data to work. One is a catalog sync. So this is a process that continuously syncs product data. And the reason you need that is so that recommendations can show accurately updated product names or pricing and reflect current availability as well. And the second type of data is storefront events. So these are collected on your Magento storefront, and it kind of tracks all the product interactions from shoppers, every product they look at, they add to cart, they purchase, etc. This is all collected at scale and then analyzed by Adobe Sensei to create these associations that recommendations then are built on. So with these two things in mind, I want to kind of jump over to some of the things that we released recently. So one issue with this catalog sync process was that it was sort of a black box, right? We didn't give the users a whole lot of visibility into what that's doing, if it's successful, if it's syncing anything, etc. So we recently released a feature that we called Catalog Sync Dashboard. So that now ships with product recommendations meta package. You kind of need to be on one of the latest versions to get this feature, but once it's installed, it'll be found here under System, Data Transfer. You'll see this new section called Catalog Sync, and I'll show you what that looks like. It's a dashboard here that will show you the status of the last sync, and currently it's a process that runs every hour. That can change in the future, of course, but it shows you the status of the last sync. And I haven't been updating my catalog, but if I had, this would update. It would say, we see that you changed 3 products, therefore 3 products have been updated. Second thing you see here is total products synced. So I have 2,048 total products. This is just the sample data catalog, and you can see that 100% of my catalog has been synced to our SaaS endpoint. And again, this is demonstrating this process right here, taking data from Magento backend and syncing it into Adobe Sensei. So the data reflected on this dashboard is what ends up in our SaaS services. And you can see this is a table with I think it's got infinite scroll even with products that have been synced. And one thing you can do here is search for an item, and then once you get search results, you can actually open some of these details and kind of spot check that the product data that was synced corresponds to what the changes that you've made. So it allows this dashboard allows the user to do several things. One is to confirm that the catalog data is in fact syncing. It also allows you to track the ongoing process. So as you update products, you can make sure that they're getting synced. You can see the metadata of the products that have been synced. And the last thing I want to cover here is that it actually allows you, there's a settings button here that allows you to trigger a resync of products. And this is something that we recommend only to do kind of on an exception basis, because it can put a load on resources. But if something is going wrong, if something is not syncing, you can try this as an option. And this also comes with a set of CLI commands that you can run on the command line, and it will have a few different flavors of the intensity of the sync, how much you blow away, and how much data you can try to reuse. So all that's documented in our dev docs. I encourage you to take a look at that. So this is hopefully a useful tool to kind of monitor and track and manage your catalog sync process. The second feature that we released somewhat recently is called inclusion and exclusion filters. So I'll navigate to my recommendations dashboard to show you that. This is just a test bed here. So we have some data that hasn't been used a whole lot lately. So anyway, the feature that we released as you're creating a recommendation, it allows you to more flexibly define. Let me make this bigger. More flexibly define what can and cannot be included in recommendations, meaning what can and cannot show up to a shopper as a recommendation. So this is divided into two parts: inclusion filters and exclusion filters. So inclusion filters are conditions that must be matched in order for a product to be eligible for recommendations. And exclusions, any products that match filters in here, they will not be recommended, right? So prime example of exclusions is you can, for example, exclude out of stock products. You can enable the filter, and then you can say, I want to exclude these out of stock products on my storefront. Same with low stock. Low stock is based on a only X left threshold configuration. I think we added a tooltip in the newer version of this. But for inclusions, this is an interesting scenario. So one thing you can do is filter products by price. You can say, there's a threshold, a price threshold that a product must match in order to be recommended. So you can enter some threshold here, and that will need to be matched by all products that will show up in recommendations. An example of when you want to do this is when you have deployed a recommendation in your storefront, but you get a lot of like accessories or kind of like low margin items, low dollar or currency amount items that are showing up. So you can kind of filter them out using this. Of course, conversely, you can create an exclusion to exclude small dollar items. There are also kind of dynamic rules available if your configuration is set up in such a way. So if you say that you're deploying a recommendation to a product detail page, that implies that a shopper will be on a product detail page when they see this recommendation, and you can drive the results that appear there off of the attributes of the product being viewed. Meaning, I can say that the category of the results, of the recommended results, must match the category of the product being viewed. You can also say they have to be, mutually exclusive in order to be recommended. Or you can just simply provide a static list of categories that must match in order for products to show up. Again, inversely, it's available as an exclusion rule. You can say, I want to exclude specific categories, and you can list them out here. You can say, I want to exclude everything that's on my sale category, and that will take effect. So you can filter by category price. You can specify even specific products to exclude or include, which probably won't get used as much, but we already went over out of stock, low stock. You can also filter based on product type and configured product visibility. So these are, just your familiar configurations in Magento admin panel. So you can include or exclude products based on their product type. So let's see. I think I covered all the examples that I wanted to cover, but feel free to look at documentation. We have this is also all covered by docs, and I believe we give several examples of kind of best practices on this. Let's see. Let me wait until the end to kind of to take questions. I have one more thing to show that we recently released. And that is a kind of a new type of AI that we added, a new recommendation type that is called visual similarity. So I will show you guys that this is covered in documentation and navigate to our recommendation types. And this is a new one. So visual similarity is a recommendation type that is able to recommend similarly looking products to what a customer is or shopper is looking at on the site. So imagine somebody is looking at, I don't know, a dress, and they see similarly looking dresses recommended to them. So this is kind of reusing a similar technology that Adobe Stock is based on. We had to kind of mend it for our own needs, but this technology is able to pick up on things like color, shape, size, like even texture and material. It will sometimes pick up. And so it will evaluate these visual characteristics in order to return products, to recommend products to the storefront. So because this won't be relevant to all the verticals and industries that we see Magento stores utilized in, but for industries like fashion or apparel or retail, things like home furnishings or similar industries, this could be very useful, right? But because it doesn't apply to everyone, this is an optional add-on to our recommendations. So it says here, visual similarity recommendation type is available when you install an optional module. This is actually similar to Page Builder. I believe Page Builder integration for Product Recs is also an optional module. But once you have enabled or installed that module, I'll show you how to deal with that recommendation type. So once you install the optional module, you will go to Settings, and you will want to toggle this flag on. You can say Enable Visual Recommendations. This will trigger the processing of image data. So we need to send image data to Adobe Sensei to be analyzed, and that way it'll be ready to recommend products. And that can take an hour or two. It kind of depends on the catalog size, but not too long. So once you have enabled this and image data has been processed, you can then, when you create a recommendation, you have the ability to say, it's only available on the product detail page. So you can say visual similarity down here. And then that will deploy a visual similarity recommendation type to the storefront. The cool thing is that this can now be combined with the inclusion/exclusion filters that I showed a little bit earlier. So somebody can say, I want items, visually similar items recommended only from the same categories as what I'm looking at. So in case you're seeing some strange results or maybe like not 100% satisfactory, you can play with these filters as well to kind of rein in what type of products are displayed. But I've got a visual similarity recommendation type deployed on my storefront, so I can navigate here and show you guys what that looks like. I'll click on a jacket, so I'm simulating a shopper, right? I'm shopping on the site. I open a product page. Ignore these first two. I forgot to turn those off, but then you get to this similar styles recommendation unit, and you can see that these are similar looking items. They have similar visual characteristics to what item I'm looking at here. This is the demo is not much because you can say like, oh, well, it's just picking items from the same category, but this is actually computer vision algorithms running behind the scenes.
Yeah, that's I think what
and we can look at a item of a different type. Like we can look at some shorts here as well. Pick one out, and as I'm looking at this item, I get recommended similar styles to what I'm looking at. So it works pretty well so far. We are constantly looking at kind of iterating on these relevancy rankers. And so this will get better with time as we kind of tune them in and train the models on more and more e-commerce data. But we would love to see people pick us up and try it out and let us know if it works or not. Obviously, we don't have the ability to train it on or test it on all catalogs out there, so we're very curious to see how this works. But this feature went GA a couple of months ago, or right before New Year's. We didn't expect much adoption then, but now with the beginning of the year, we're looking forward to more adoption and more use cases that this can power. So that was the overview of the last and third feature that went GA in December. I want to cover a little bit of where we're headed or things that are in progress now. One thing that we're working on is called product preview for recommendations. So this is an ability for the admin user as they're creating these recommendations, as they're putting them together, to be able to preview what products will show up on the storefront to their shoppers. Currently, that's not very easy. Currently, you have to create the recommendation, then go to your storefront, and then see like what kind of browse around and see what kinds of things are showing up. But now I'll show you a preview. This is on one of our test environments. But now you'll be able to right in the admin panel to see what is getting recommended. So I'm going to the same form. This is my product recommendation creation form. You can see that right away I see a recommended products preview. And it displays however many products I have currently selected. So some of these options default to values, so it defaults to be deployed to a home page and be a most viewed recommendation type. We can change this around a little bit, and you can change the product type, or I'm sorry, page type that the recommendation will go on. But with some of these, you will need user input. So for example, if I want to see a preview of a product detail page, I will need to give it a PDP to simulate, right? So I'll say I want to look at this product, and this will be the PDP, and you can. The reason why it's returning some of these other things is because the results are not filtered by category. So these currently are returning most popular by views, most popular products by views from all categories across the site. So for a PDP, we actually recommend as a best practice to put in a filter that says only show products from the same category. So if you put this in place, then voila, you can see much better results right away because we now say show me most popular products by product views, but filtered by the category of the product that I'm looking at. So now this starts to make much more sense, right? These are women's jackets and hoodies and etc. So as you're making changes here, I can also, increase the number of my products that I'm requesting in my preview, and it will adjust accordingly. So it just keeps going here. So we're excited to get this out. This is, a admin workflow improvement. We'll kind of shortcut the time that's needed to kind of validate recommendations because you can see them right away here, and there's no need to save them and then go to storefront and then tweak from there. Because we are rolling out more and more tools to set up recommendations and play with them, this is a very valuable thing that will help preview and kind of help gain confidence that what you're deploying to storefront actually makes sense. One quick thing to mention here: if you're deploying to these different page types for a cart and order confirmation, you'll be able to enter multiple SKUs. So like if you're deploying a recommendation to a cart page, you can actually simulate a cart. So you can say, let's assume that a customer has a couple different bags in their cart, and these will show you the most popular products, and then again with the filters that you apply, you can play around with this. But this will allow you to simulate a cart with multiple products on a PDP. Obviously, you can only select one, so that works there. So the next thing that I want to talk about that's in flight is something that we've gotten a ton of requests about, which is compatibility of this product recommendations feature with headless storefronts or PWA specifically.
So I'm just going to stay.
I'll go back to my diagram here. The biggest challenge with that, and it's been a limitation so far because recommendations currently are supported only on kind of Magento native storefronts. The biggest challenge was that a PWA or some custom storefront currently doesn't know how to implement the storefront collection, because there's a given schema and there's certain types of events that are supported and fields that are required for these events to have in order to pass validation. So we are currently working on PWA support for this feature, and it's just this. It's teaching a PWA storefront how to emit these events when shoppers interact with different products on storefront. And we actually have these events documented. Not all of these are required, but you can see the kind of the examples of events that are emitted today. Again, not all of these are required to build recommendation models. There's a handful that are critical. So we're starting with those, and we'll kind of expand from there. But it's in progress. We're hoping to release soon. I don't have a commitment at this time, but hopefully in the first half of the year. And then we will certainly look to support other kind of implementations of storefronts. Besides PWA, we want to make this possible on any custom storefront. It'll require some documentation and some back and forth, but that's where we're headed right now. That concludes everything that I had to show. let me pause here and ask for questions on anything that I've shown so far.
Okay, I don't see any questions, so guys, take your time. Please put your questions to the chat and Misha will be able to answer them.
Yeah, happy to hang out and look at the chat. One last note before I go, since I don't see any questions. We're starting to kind of evaluate direction of where to go next with intelligent commerce and AI ML capabilities. I would love to hear the community's thoughts on this. If you guys have use cases or think they're great opportunities for us to tackle with data-powered technology, we'd love to hear your thoughts on this. We'll be kind of determining direction in the next few months here. So happy to hear from you. Let me know what you think, and I will talk to you then. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Misha. Okay, guys, let's move to the next topic. It's extended API coverage for Magento 2.5. And Alex, please go ahead.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alex Polerush, and I am Magento architect. And today I will be covering additional APIs in Magento 2.5. And to give you a little bit of background why we have this additional coverage, we conducted total cost of ownership research at the end of last year, and one of the feedback that we got from merchants and partners was that sometimes we make, like we as Magento Adobe, we make changes which are not considered breaking by us, but they are actually breaking the merchant stores, the live stores during upgrade. And one of the ways to mitigate this issue is to reduce the so-called gray area that we have right now in our API coverage and kind of legalize APIs that we already have in Magento, but the ones which we're not treating them as API at Adobe. So if you look at this picture, we can see that, let's say, this square on the left side, it represents all APIs or like all classes and interfaces in Magento, and we treat some of them as APIs, and we check for backward incompatible changes when we deliver changes to Magento core for these classes and interfaces. Then there is another section at the bottom, which is larger one, which nobody treats as API, and community members are not using these as API. And there is a layer in between, which we do not treat as API, but community members have to use them for some reason. Usually this is because there is no adequate coverage in specific area, and they have to use classes which are not marked as API. And our goal is to reduce this gray area. We will not be able to eliminate it completely, we understand that, but at least we will be able to reduce this area significantly. And that is what we are trying to achieve in scope of this initiative. And also, to be clear, we are not introducing new interfaces or new classes in scope of this specific initiative. We are only marking existing interfaces and classes. Let's look at beneficiaries of this change in Magento 2.5. So first of all, merchants will benefit from this because total cost of ownership for them will be reduced due to a reduction in actual breaking changes that they get. If you look at release notes, for example, you will see a list of backward incompatible changes, but as we discussed previously, this list may be incomplete. And even if merchants do not have any modifications which are like supposed to be broken, like if they are not violating any contracts, they are not using non-APIs, so they can still be broken in this case. And another benefit would be for community developers, obviously, because they will not have to depend on the code which is not officially marked as API. And this will lead to kind of satisfaction from developers' perspective, and it will be easier for them to maintain and refactor the code and keep it up to date with latest Magento releases. On Adobe side, we are going to reduce risk of escalations caused by accidental actual breaking changes. Again, changes in this gray area where we don't expect to break anyone, but as a result, some extensions are broken. And everybody in Magento ecosystem will benefit from increased reliability and code quality caused by development of tools like Upgrade Compatibility tool, which was released in alpha version, I believe, end of last year. And why such tools will benefit? Because they strictly rely on officially marked API, and they will be able to precisely evaluate effects of upgrading to specific Magento version if we have clearly defined APIs, and if you don't have those gray classes which are treated as API by community but not by Magento. So now let's take a look at what exactly we are going to cover in scope of this initiative. First of all, most of the interfaces in the system will be treated as APIs. There could be some exceptions, but I would say we manually reviewed all of the interfaces in Magento which are not currently marked as API, and most of them are actually extension points which should be marked as API, and they will be marked as API in 2.5. Then there's some gap in API directory of modules. We are going to make sure that everything in API directory of every module is marked as API, including exceptions. And the reason is obvious. API code like service contracts, they cannot depend on non-API code. And if we declare that specific service contract throws an exception, this exception must be marked as API as well. And we have some cases when it wasn't marked as API. The third case is non-API entities that are most frequently used by extensions on Marketplace. We did analysis of extensions on Marketplace using our tools, and we collected most frequent violations of existing API contracts. And based on ranking, we selected top probably like 300 violations. We manually reviewed them, and we are going to mark about 100 of those as API, because in most cases, these could be treated as layer supertypes where extensions are kind of required to use them to be able to inject the behavior into Magento. Or they could be classes which were initially intended for extension, and Magento core uses them to extend from them, like abstract classes. And they are not marked as API. So those entities, they will be marked as API. Additionally, we are going to mark a significant portion of blocks. A little bit of history, why blocks were marked as, or like they're actually not marked, but if you look at documentation, we treat all blocks as API currently, and the reason for that was to prevent adding new blocks in patch releases. And the solution was to mark them, or like to treat them as API. And as you know, it is prohibited to add new APIs in patch releases of Magento because it is a new functionality, and since extensions cannot declare compatibility on patch level, they can only declare compatibility on minor level of Magento. It is prohibited to add new APIs since extension cannot be compatible with both patch releases if they have different APIs. So that was kind of solution many years ago to treat all blocks as APIs, and now we are saying that we have probably better option, and instead what we did, we went through all blocks, and we are going to mark those blocks as API for which it makes sense. Usually these blocks introduce new functionality, they declare new public methods, and there is a portion of blocks which are either not referenced from any layout, so those will be skipped, and we probably cannot remove them because somebody can use them in the extensions, but at least we are not going to mark them as APIs. And there is another section or portion of blocks which are not providing new functionality in addition to what they inherit from the let's say template block or some other parent block. Another area which is currently lacking API annotations is factories for API entities. Obviously, if you have a non-injectable class like product or customer, you have to use factory to create an instance of that entity. And if the factory itself is not marked as API, you are forced to violate contract even though you want to use API entity, like product, for example. And it definitely makes sense that factories for API entities are marked as API. And that's what we are making sure that we will be doing in the future. And the last type of change we are making, we are marking some auto-generated code as API as well. And the logic is pretty simple. And as I mentioned before, we cannot depend on non-API code from API code. And in case of extension attributes, they are referenced from our data objects in service contracts. And so data objects themselves are APIs, and extension attributes are currently not marked as APIs. I mean, it seems like not a big deal, but it will be helpful to clarify the boundary between API and non-API, and it will also be helpful for our tools, like upgrade compatibility tool, for example, because we will not have to implement exception rules basically for treating some classes differently, like treating extension attributes as API all the time. So we will have simpler implementation in our tools, and the rules will be also simplified in this case. So now let's briefly take a look at how you can participate in this initiative. And I will go to pull request to our architecture repository. So we have pull request here. And in this pull request, we have about 1,500 new entries as API candidates. Like, there is pretty huge file with all APIs that we suggest and that we are planning to mark as APIs. And if you have time, you can go and check that out. Additionally, if you believe that you know some cases which are missing in current API coverage, but you know that you have to use them for some reason, please leave your comments in this pull request, and we will consider all additional cases which are not currently in the list of these 1,500 API candidates. And additionally, I know that our community engineering team has already created tickets for actually going to the code and doing those API marking. And if you're interested in that part, you can also join us and help us with API coverage. So that's all I had. And please, if you have any questions, I will be glad to answer your questions.
Okay, thank you, Alex. I see there is no question. So guys, if you have any questions regarding the extended API coverage, so please reach out community engineering team or Alex and ask your questions and have a discussion on that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, guys, that's pretty much it for today. So thank you for such great content. Thank you for attending and see you soon. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.